think you can follow my lead?
What do you mean, 86 gigabytes? I remember when back in the day, we could upload our games to 86 kilobyte floppy disks.
In all seriousness though, I have a rather contentious opinion here. Normally I try to keep my reviews positive, but very few individuals are willing to voice their views in a productive manner. So, my issues are constructive based. First and foremost, this game was doomed to fail from the conceptual stage. My question to all sides of the debate is this: does anyone here like this game without any sort of caveat? It seems that returning fans had issues with the gameplay and/or focusing on Midgar only. Whereas it seems to me that new individuals would not be well invested into the series. In other words, this game in its entirety are not technically light.
It doesn't help that the setting and characters are pretty much doomed from the start as well. It really started with environmentalist propaganda, and it constantly continued whenever Antifa or Barrett got involved. Seriously, I made a drinking game out of my gameplay. I really suggest you drink water instead of alcohol with this drinking game. Otherwise, you'll literally die from the 86 gigabytes of alcoholism. Here's the rules. Drink every time someone mentions the planet or any iteration of it.
This pump's sole purpose is to drain the planet dry.
Drink every time Aerith, aka Sword Slut, says something stupid.
Good work today, guys.
Drink every time Aerith tries to be a weeb waifu. Drink every time the specters enter a scene. Drink every time Square Enix's boner for Sephiroth comes into play. Drink every time Cloud says, for a price.
How much?
Drink every time Cloud acts like a tsundere.
Shut up and move over.
Drink every time Jessie is acting organically cute as fuck. Please don't do the drinking game with alcohol. Because in all honesty, part of the reason it's called 86 gigabytes of alcoholism is because if you apply the sheer amount of propaganda, stupid sayings, weeb pandering by Sword Slut, Cloud's inability to take a compliment, Jessie being cute as fuck, Biggs being a fucking badass who takes out entire fucking platoons, etc. You realize from the drinking game that you're drinking liquids by the gallon. Hence the aforementioned 86 gigabytes of alcoholism. Can I get a hashtag Bakamitai? But let's break down the setting. The main character is called Blonde Zack, aka Blonde Edge Boy Dante, who is always soon until he gets his payment.
You gonna stand there and pretend you can't hear the planet crying out in pain? I know you can!
You really hear that?
Damn straight I do!
Get help.
Then he's just frumpy gumpy. It sure helps us when we must do extra work to get overdue pay. Real fucking murking right here, boys! Only in Final Fantasy VII do you break your own lore within half an hour by not getting the concept of a mercenary correct. Fuck my life, this is gonna be a long game, isn't it? Oh, holy fucking hell. There's 18 chapters. No fucking wonder why it's 86 gigabytes in size. Then there's Antifa, who at least is stunning and brave enough to fight with her face out in the open. Albeit she also beats up people based solely on political ideology. Then there's Mr. T. Samuel Barrett Jackson, who is so big that it makes 0 sense for him to be out in the open to carry out missions.
Quit talking out your ass! Everyone knows Avalanche only cares about saving the planet.
who is equally useless at his role. Also, seriously, why not hide your identities? Most of this contrived drama would not exist if they just hid their identity from the get-go. No scans, no nothing. And then there's Sword Slut, aka Aerith. She's basically, in this game, ultimate weeb bait at this point. I do not envy the lady who voiced her. Also, holy hell, the dubbing for the children is like nails on a chalkboard.
Also go wherever there's free food. Marlene says she always gives them some snacks. Who are you? Where is she?
Oh goodness! I'm experiencing an emotional response.
They sound like Yandere Simulator fans. Well, at least credit where credit is due. At least Yandere Simulator's story doesn't have story-breaking meta-narratives. Well, that's because there's no story there. But at this point, story-wise, no story is better than a bad story. Well, to be fair, it is kind of unfair for me to rip on Solid Big Snake, Antifa, Cloud Dairy, Mr. T, Barrett Jackson, Potato Wedge,
Damn, boy, he's thick!
Sword Slut, and more based on dislike only. So I will give credit where credit is due. There are some positives that kept me from making the score of 0 out of 10. This game, to me, is a major 2 out of 10. I was going to award it a 5 out of 10 earlier, but that was a high ball in hopes that the story and fights would end up in that direction. Unfortunately, it happens to be that none of the fights meet expectations that an advertised remake brings. I would thereby pose the idea that Kingdom Hearts 3 is exponentially better than the Final Fantasy VII Remake. While I'm on controversial hot takes, I'd say that Final Fantasy VII didn't deserve a remake, let alone a remake that ended up poorly. But Legend of Dragoon definitely should have. However, I'm not going to be too salty, as I hear that Legend of Dragoon is getting a PS5 port, and if it's a full remake, I will not complain about it not being on a PS4 or PS4 Pro. I will gladly wait for it. You all have no idea how Legend of Dragoon is important to me, or how easily the one game alone sells me on a PS5. A PS5 remake sounds so god tier that I jizz every time I think about the idea. My Meru character, which I feature in multiple verses of my own writing, my favorite colors of white and silver hair, all of that had the base Meru come from Legend of Dragoon. Albeit over the years, Meru soon became Meru Hawkins. Just like a certain secret project will alter the character dynamic of another series, but for now it's neither here nor there to you. I can guarantee you that I can enjoy the remake for Legend of Dragoon, and I can guarantee you that even newbies will enjoy the innovator of QTEs known as Legend of Dragoon. What are the strengths of the Final Fantasy remake? One may ask for some positivity. Well, for one, the graphics are phenomenal at first, until you realize that the story's direction. I really did enjoy the graphics to a certain extent. However, I would like to add that I felt disappointed with the lack of proper environments. Despite the visual masterclass of world design, it felt hollow and superficial because it wasn't capitalized on. Then there's the boring ass side quests, something only a nostalgia fan would be willing to do. For me, I skip them whenever possible. The story on its own is sufficient, I'd say. The OST is maybe perhaps a 6 out of 10 or a 7 out of 10. Some songs really, really kick ass. Others, though, are pointless or bad. I was going to give a negative view on the mechanics because I flippin' hate any ARPG not named Tales of Berseria, which was a game that somehow defied the formula of monotony. However, as I played classic mode, At first, I despised the game and its mechanics. It seemed linear and tunnel vision at first. But as I continued to fuck around with Punisher mode and Operator mode, I could somewhat pretend it feels like I'm playing Devil May Cry. Final Fantasy VII Remake's mechanics are like a meth addict hooker you have sex with, where, when drunk enough and using your imagination, she looks like Ashley Tisdale or Scarlett Johansson, or your favorite, preferably non-sword slutty, anime waifu. However, the morning then comes when you realize that the Final Fantasy VII Remake is that meth addict that you pretended the remake was Devil May Cry 5, inevitably making you drink more. So when you squint around, understand the flow between Punisher mode and Operator mode, you can pretend you're Dante instead of the worst sexual cross between gender-bent Naruto and Sasuke from those doujinshis. Here's why. Punisher mode is meant for heavy-hitting assault. As such, it capitalizes on near superhuman physical strength and jump height. It is designed for closing distance and first heavy strikes to knock your opponent down in some way, or allowing you to jump towards a long-distance enemy. Whereas Operator mode is a busted crowd control attack with absurd area of effect and downright brutally fast amounts of staggering, which is incredibly useful. Stagger mode is where you can pile on obscene amounts of damage, and in conjunction with Operator mode, it allows you to brutalize a massive swath of enemies that were literally all just staggered. That whole reference was my experience with the mechanics. But this whole bit shows the emblematic problems with this game's remake in general. It makes me wish to play other games instead. Here's the main reason why Final Fantasy VII's remake is structurally and foundationally broken. We're talking about a main hero who is constantly negative, constantly standoffish, and just downright rude and obnoxious. His compatriots are far worse. They're egocentric eco-terrorists who constantly rave about saving the planet. Seriously, there's a reason why it's a drinking game. By bombing a Mako reactor, inevitably causing climate change. Even worse, when massive calamity happens as a result of their actions, which is the natural consequence of bombing a Mako reactor, which is akin to a nuclear reactor, they act stupid for the sake of being stupid. What? We didn't know that this would happen. When? Even worse, they're upset about how they're portrayed. I often wanted to punch my screen for how hard this game wants to wank off these eco-terrorists. The writers desperately want you to believe Cloud and his party are the heroes of the story, but in all honesty, Shinra are the ones who are the justified ones here. Don't give me morally gray nonsense either. It's quite clear that they portray Shinra as undeniably black in morality. There is no moral gray zone here. The one chance that they could write Shinra as morally gray, they fail at. Example given being when the president of Shinra rightfully called out Mr. T. Barrett Jackson's flawed and warped ideology, and what do they do with it? Getting shanked from behind while Prism Bubba Sephiroth buttfucks President Shinra with his long katana shaft. So literally no side is morally gray. But I'll give credit where credit is due. Over time, the story made me warm up to Cloud. Unlike the others, it was quite clear that Cloud was gruff because of his past, and he is afraid of becoming emotionally invested in people again. Something I can relate to, considering the fear of intimacy is a major concern in my own life. Well, if there was ever a reason to start drinking alcohol, now's the time, Bulls. Still, drink responsibly. I know it's difficult because of how mind-numbingly boring it is, and how horrifically structured the entire story is from the get-go, but we must persevere. So basically the script is broken plot, but overall I do see positive traits. One prevailing theme amongst even the most diehard fans of this game is the fact that they even have some kind of issues with the format of the game. I can't blame them. Fetch quests, boring missions, and worst of all, the goddamn walking amounts. Oh, and another fun thing about the story in conjunction with the mechanics are the motorcycle scenes. There's some strange, inexplicable thrill and catharsis of beating up your enemy with a broadsword on a motorbike. It also helps when Jesse is riding bitch seat. I generally found myself at the same Event Horizon issue I have with other games like Four Goddesses Online, i.e., I really like and empathize with the villains instead of the heroes. That's an inherently bad thing, and making the heroes unlikable to varying degrees is not helpful. That being said, credit where credit is due, Barrett is easily best dad. The two best girls are Kyrie and Jessie in this game easily. Roche, Rude, etc. are generally the best boys, far better than Seth. But seriously, why did they nerf the characters in this remake? Most people say Aerith is more respectable in the original game. In which case, why in the literal fuck was she reduced to mindless weeb trash? I mean, I don't mind a weeb girl character, but her entire character arc, design, and behavior are blatantly forcing me to zone out of the game in regards to tonal clash and a breaking of kayfabe. I really don't like the Spectres at all. In the end, I really don't want to give this game this score, but this is easily the most disappointing game of 2020. It's depressing to the point of alcoholism that the gaming industry can't even get nostalgia pandering right anymore. It was their one trick left to make a good game. Logically speaking, you can't go wrong with remaking a classic like Final Fantasy VII, right? Well, in my humble opinion, they did. Well, guys, hopefully this doesn't come across as too negative. The intent here was to convey a massive tonal, cognitive, and kayfabe dissonance with the many reviewers who give it glowing reviews. Whereas I literally had to invent a drinking game to make the experience sufficient enough to be fun. That, ladies and gentlemen, this has been the Sarcastic Happiness Machine, and today's story was the 86 gigabytes of alcoholism. You know the general outro drill. Have a good one.